I asked you for the question at the beginning of the class, what is the best tool you advise for the authentication actually based on the token base? We saw two tools, the smart card and the memory card. Which one you advise? That's the question content maybe. We keep going on. Actually, I believe that we finished the context of the token-based authentication scenario last class. Yes. Biometric even. We saw authentication issues and the countermeasures. Yes, we were here. Okay. The context of the authentication is the final. It's not the final step. You cannot actually discuss. You cannot discuss the security of, let's say, communication to happen between two parties in the network, while you are just saying that you're going to set the authentication based on the token based or the biometric or the password based. It's not the final step. Remember that there are actually techniques as you just set up the solution. There are techniques to break that. We saw the examples. The authentication actually, from the authentication issues, we saw last class actually context talking about the client issues and the scenario via which we see the masquerade or something like that. Hosts in general, they are actually a context of vulnerability or breach, where we see the security applied being broken, in the sense of whatever the context you apply or you adopt. Mainly we talk about password based, or let's say a tool to pin to authenticate you, to be broken. Countermeasures for such context. Countermeasure for such context means to raise up the security that you adopt. Means you adopt the security, and to adopt a secure security means you raise up the security level into a higher level. We may talk about, let's say, like when we discuss the encryption, we may hash the keys utilized, which are the pins or the passwords. We might actually cover or isolate the data stores, protecting the, let's say, database where the user credentials are stored. So there have to be actually a mechanism based on the security scenario applied to raise up the security. When you talk about token-based, for example, security, your card or your smart card, not to share it. Very easy. So there have to be actually a mechanism via which you raise up the security of your security solution. The security solution itself, it has to be secured. This is the meaning. Eavesdropping is another context. Actually, it's a kind of a static attack via which we sniff, or the attacker sniffs on group of communicating parties without any permittance. Eavesdropping, إلقاء السمع in Arabic. Actually, here we are just seeing an intruder or an interceptor, that he is intercepting a communication channel to see what's happening, what's going on, to sniff only. It's a kind of static attack. Very good examples are the eavesdropping, the hardware, the keyloggers. They can actually be utilized to read what is happening. Actually, you may say, what is the benefit of such, let's say, scenario? Very easy to sniff your passwords, your credentials, to sniff your actually communicating data, to have a copy. That's it. It will not stop you, but it will take a copy of your data, which is actually disastrous also. If you send in classified data, it would be actually exposed due to such attack, eavesdropping. Replay attack, it's another context. We define this replay attack. I love it, you know. Actually, it is a very famous attack. And actually, if you guarantee that the communication channel is secured against such attack, so you are raising up your security to a level that is really remarkable. Replay attack, we defined it at the course, at the digital security course, computer security course, introduction to information assurance and computer security course. We defined that it is actually a context of intercepting, at that time, intercepting wireless communicated data to reuse it again in future times. We given the example of a car key. Whenever you try to open your car using your key, if the car does not reply to your key or does not receive your key signal, means and you are in the range of coverage, yes, means the key signal has been intercepted by another party, and let's say token has been actually saved somewhere. At that time, the intruder has a key to open your car or to utilize your car in future times, because the key signal is identified with a unique number, never to be regenerated again during the lifetime of the key. The replay attack, its context of intercepting a message, or let's say a data, for a future reuse. Because of this, we are saying replay. We are reutilizing the key, let's say not the key, the message or the key value for a future purpose. From the countermeasures to such context, as I'm giving you the example here, the car, if it does not reply to you, it means there is something happened. You have to have a note from the car. So this note is an indicator that the task has been accomplished fully or not. If not, so there is a hint to indicate that the communication was actually falsified or something happened in between. In addition to that, because when we keep talking about the example of the car key, for example, the car key does not reply, means the signal has been intercepted. Hey, what is the solution? You'll block in the future? No, the key is unique, so the car will accept it in the future. So from this circumstance only, to avoid the reuse in the future without being authenticated, without being legitimate and authentic, we might use actually a one-time passcode. Means either we add another pin to the pin itself, or we give actually a time as a constraint. So there have to be a measure to avoid such a breach. General actually views, you know all of them. You know all of them. They are not new to you. Also, let's just have a small. Actually, when I talk about the eavesdropping, we talk about just static attack. Replay, we talk about here an active attack. Trojan Horse, we talk about both static and active attacks, because it depends on the payload. As per the definition of the Trojan Horse, it is a context of luring a user, luring a user in order to make him believe something is true while it is false or it is falsified. In the sense of, it tells you that this is a very good software or this is a good picture or something like that. Sorry. At the time that it is completely harmful, it is equipped with payload to be executed in background of your device once downloaded or once opened. So the countermeasure of such, let's say, malware, such attack, such negative, let's say, view, it is to not communicate any data unless you trust the source. Unless you trust the source. If I tell you, Murad, if I tell you, for example, you students, you have to download this file. So you have to trust me. Why? Because I'm teaching you. I'm legitimate with you. So there is a trust between me and you. Yet, if somebody tells you, hey, this is a good source of a book, which is very, I'm giving it to you very easily to download, and it's free. While the book, you know, it's cost you something like that. You do not have to trust the party, whomever is. Whomever is. If you trust the party, okay, you can do. It's not a whomever is, but if you trust the party, for example, Microsoft or let's say Amazon or something like that, they are resources that you can trust. But if you do not trust the source, not the file, not the data, I'm talking about the provider, the source provider. If you trust, you can go on. You can go on. Yes. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, no. If there is no trust with the source provider, I insist on this. This is for your daily life even. It's not only because of the cost we are defining, but even for your daily life. Something that you find free in the internet and you do not trust clearly, you do not trust the provider, don't download. Don't even touch it. Don't open it. Don't go over. The message is clear. Another context via which we see the data breach, which is the denial of service and the distributed denial of service, which is a context of, we may say it's a dynamic attack, it's an active attack actually, via which we see services being forbidden to deliver the service or the context to the end users. Why? Because of a denial of service. What is the denial of service? It is to bring a service provider down. How to bring it down? Do you delete it or destroy it? No, we just make him be occupied of serving millions of other and trillions of other services, of other requests, to be occupied to reach the level of that he is not able to serve other legitimate requests. Means you as a requester, you are legitimate, you are actually genuine. If you want to ask a resource from the EduWave, as per an example, the EduWave has to open to you. But if the EduWave is under attack of denial of service, so the EduWave is available, but it will not serve you. It will tell you wait. It will just show you wait. This is denial of service. Even if it is for a short period of time, for a few seconds, for a few minutes, it is a denial of service because it is occupied already. It is occupied. This is the sense. Occupied by whom? If it is occupied by one attacker, so we talk about denial of service. Thus, if it is occupied by a group of attackers, and we explained at that time also the distributed attack, we talk about distributed denial of service. Security context actually to go after is the multi-factor or multi-level security tool. So multi-factor security, we do not have to authenticate parties using only one factor, but you may utilize more than one factor. The sense of here actually multi-factor is that you are going to ask for a password in addition to the password PIN code. In addition to the PIN code, you may ask for a voice or a picture, retina, something like that, means a biometric. So there is more than one authentication layer to refer to. Okay. Any questions, please? Up to now. Any questions you have? Anything you may ask? Up to you here. Try to ask, try to speak, don't send messages, please. Yes, no, Khadija, that's good. If you have any questions, you interrupt me anytime. Actually, from the practical scenarios, you may see this view here. We have a Java-based application that has to be delivered over the internet, and it gives actually access through, actually it is accessed and reached through, let's say, security filters, different security filters. It gives us actually an access to a data store. We have a local network. This is actually a scenario. It's a very good scenario where we see data communicated in between different and clearly different nodes. Here, actually, the client might be here, accessing through a public network. And also locally, we are seeing security filters. The data actually, it is holding a variety of media. The local service provider is holding a network, even that it is sharing data amongst nodes. So all the authentication contexts, what we saw, it might be actually seen in different locations here. It's given to you, and it is from our book only. Summary to this book, summary to this unit, summary to this unit, which is the authentication. Any questions, please? Any questions just before we pass to the unit number 4? Up to here, your midterm and your in semester is up to here. It's unit 3 only. What we are going to see in unit number 4 is not included. It's not inclusive. Do you have any questions, please? I'll give you just a few seconds to think if you have any questions related to the authentication context before I pass to unit number 4. Unit number 4 is talking about the access control. Let's dig in. Let me open the data, please. Access control, as per the definition we saw in chapter number 7, computer security, we have 4 models via which we see the access control. I believe you are able to see the slides. Is it visible to you, please?
Yes.
That's great. That's great. So the access control, as the first definition, it is a context via which actually we see an action of control behind the authentication. Means we pass to the level number 3, identification, authentication, then access control, via which we are going to grant access to resources to different parties based on the, let's say, role, or based on the functionality, based on the time of access, based on the, we have different criterions via which we are going to control the access to resources. I repeat, because we already authenticated parties. So you, as a party, you are already inside the environment, and inside the environment, you are not going to see everything. You are not going to utilize everything. We give the example of the EduWave. We all use the same username and password fields inside the EduWave. We are all utilizing the same file, the same. If you see the URL on top of the EduWave window, you see the same URL, the same file name, and we are utilizing the same text box for username and same text box for password. But me, as an instructor, I can see all and your profile, all of your profiles, but you can see only your profile, your transcript, your personal transcript only. Why? Because of the access control. Based on your session, based on your, let's say, level of authorization, you'll be awarded an access to a group of resources. Resources we talk here. We are not going to authenticate you again. No, already authenticated. تم التعرف عليك. Already the system has recognized you already. Done. Great. First definition of what is an access control. Actually, it is a context of, we see it in the negative side. We are preventing and prohibiting users from reaching, let's say users, but unauthorized users to reach different resources without any permission in this context. So if you are not authorized to utilize such a resource, you'll not be avail that resource. It is one of the very famous and very, let's say, pillar, actually is a pillar inside the, let's say, security, digital security, within this digital security, I may say that. Means actually, remember here that we are talking about a level after the authentication. Remember, we'll see a graph right in a second. So we are talking about resources which are the target of any user. He is trying to ask a system to reach the resources. He's not going to see the interface, only the pictures and the front end interfaces. No, he needs the resource. What are the resources of the service? What are the service provider services? He's trying to reach those services. So to reach those services, he has to be identified at the beginning, then after authenticated. Okay, you are already inside. Since you are inside, the administrator will control you. You have been authenticated. Okay, who are you now? Based on who are you, the answer to who are you, you'll be given specific resources for you only. But you have to be authenticated first. If you are not authenticated, in the case of not failed to authenticate, you'll not reach this level. You'll be out from here. From here, you'll not pass this barrier. You'll not pass this limit, this frame here, this border here. You'll not pass it if you are not authenticated. But once authenticated, validated, so you reach this level here, this zone. And this zone is the action of the administrator to control you. See the arrow, it's in both directions. He will control you. How to control you? By giving you specific resources. You will not see everything. No, still there is an access control here. There is another layer. Here. This layer here will prohibit you from seeing everything. No, it's not your role to see everything. Your role is to see, for example, this file only. So you'll see only this file. So specifically and precisely, the administrator will control the access to resources, to the system you got in because of the authentication. After the authentication, the role of the administrator to assign the roles. To assign what? Roles to users. To give privileges, change privileges, edit privileges, and so on. The scenario of the auditing here is the context of a full scan or an abstract scan to the environment. Is everything running fine or not? Is the authentication, yes, in place and running or not? Is the access control in place or not? Are the resources totally available for the administrator, yes or no? And so on. This is the context of auditing. It's an abstract scan. If you see the binocular here, it's an abstract scan. Abstract meaning at least the functionalities, they are available and running or not. It's not a micro scan, it's a macro scan. Okay. There are four policies we are going to see, and we saw them, and again we are seeing them in details now. You are specialized, so you are going behind their details. The DAC, discretionary access control, the MAC, mandatory access control, the RBAC number 1, role-based access control, RBAC number 2, rule-based. Here we talk about RBAC also, or attribute, role or attribute, rule or attribute, rule or role. In this context here, attribute-based authentication or rule-based attribute. See, it's rule, it's not role. Role, for example, manager, technician, instructor, student, the role. Student, for example, it's your role. So because your role, you are not given access to control a file. You see only, you just visualize. Rule, for example, we say, YouTube, you cannot open YouTube inside the University of Lisbon campus between 8 morning and 4 p.m. This is a rule. Because of a rule, you are not able to access something. Because of a role, you're a student, you cannot edit a function. So you are not able to access the edit page. So role is something, rule is another thing. So four cases, 4 policies. discretionary عشوائي, you just access arbitrarily based on group of asynchronous rules. Also they are rules, but it is said discretionary, انتقائية ليس عشوائي, انتقائية. Mandatory here by force, you have to utilize this, you don't have to use this one. So it's a mandatory. It's a group of forced rules to access or not to access. Yeah, it is like that. It's just a security measure, mandatory. Yeah, mandatory in the sense of, yes, you are allowed, you are not allowed by force. You are not. It's not by option. By force, you have to use this interface. By force, you have to access through this page. By force, you see only this, and so on. Role-based, by who are you in the organization or in the environment, your level. Rule, group of policies or politics that the company has set or the environment is setting onto the users. We see that there the definitions actually and let's say views in detail. We see these the context of the full unit, the access control policies. We see them. So the requirements to fulfill any of the let's say policies, there are actually requirements to go after. Any of them, we saw 4 policies. Any of the 4 policies actually to accomplish that, there are actually requirements. The first thing is that the authentication has to happen. The authentication has to happen. Without authentication, there is no access control. Remember, the access control will not find the access control outside of the system. Means UA will not ask you, hey, do you want to see your transcript without writing your password? No, it will not happen. You have to give your username and your password. After without giving your username and your password, you will not see any data, any resources. So authentication has to happen at the beginning. Actually, because of the context of the control, there is a fine and specified actually cost. When you say cost, there is a fine and specified access to the resources. There is a fine and specified access to the resource. It stands out. Actually, it's a micro filtration. It's a micro filtration. There have to be actually a mechanism as a requirement. There have to be a mechanism to specify how to access the resources. Function to control, procedure to control. Least privilege means you have to actually, as a requirement, to succeed in implementing the access control, every user, even the administrator, even the owner, the manager, he has to have the least privilege possibly, the possible least privileges to him. The company owner, to secure the system, we have to give him the least privileges, just to make his role in action, just to push his role to be in action. Does not mean that he is the owner, so let him do whatever he wants. No, if he does not understand in programming, so why we give him the resources of the files or of the system? We do not give. Why we give him access to the database interface? No, he does not have, because he does not understand. Even he is the owner. So in order to protect the system and the environment, we give him only whatever the functions he needs. So the least privileges to be given. These for security purpose only. So we prohibit the administrator or the owner from accessing everything. Why? Because we are protecting the environment, to make the environment fruitful more to everybody. Because an administrator, if he is not technical, he might make mistakes. He might write text inside the code. If he writes text inside the code, so he will destroy everything. The system will actually fail. The service will stop and so on. Clearly, because of the requirements, actually, because to make actually good control, clearly we have to segregate and separate the roles of each individual inside the system. Student means a student. We know the student what he can do. He can only see his transcript. He can only see subjects. He can only see the timetable, and so on. Instructors, they may choose courses, they may assign roles to students, they may actually see all the students' profile. Technicals, they may add instructors, they may modify instructors, and so on. So based on the duty, the role will be actually designated to every and each single individual inside the environment. The roles and the let's say functionalities to be given to an individual might be modified and controlled. Means they are not final. They are not final. Yeah, we can give you actually specific access to a specific resource during a specific period of time. Yes, you as a student, you cannot open the EduWave. No, sorry, you cannot open the YouTube during the period 8 morning to 4 p.m. But we can give you specific access, for example, from 12 midday to 1 p.m. We can give you specific access during that period of time. So there is a control on the access control, the group of policies. It means there are exceptions. There are exceptions, full stop. There are exceptions for the rules. In addition to that, there is a control on the administration. Means the administrator itself, he can give actually, he may assign roles to individuals inside the, let's say, in the environment or the system. Means he can assign a user to be able to add or to delete or to modify group of rules. Yes, the administrator can give those rules, those, let's say, functions or capabilities to different individuals inside the organization. Does not mean only the administrator will do. No, the administrator can assign those roles, those functions to individuals, to different users. Means he will raise up the privilege of a user. Elements, actors, like we saw the actors in the cryptography scenario, the actors in access control, the elements. The access control, actually, we talk about the user. Who is it to control? Men. Users. You, me, he, she, her, and so on. Users. Actually, you talk about the one to act. The one that asks to act to access a resource, because we are not using the word user. Why? Because antiviruses, they are considered to be subjects. Antivirus, they have to access resources to check them, to control them. Firewalls, they are actors. Different security appliances, they might considered to be subjects because they access resources. So a subject is the, let's say, candidate trying to access a resource, whether it's a user or it's an application. And those subjects, they are classified into 3 groups based on the Unix. We saw that in the password, actually, based on the, let's say, based on the Unix only, but it is to be actually respected by other platforms also, even Microsoft with Genuine, or the licensed environments. Those 3 groups of subjects, they are either an owner of a resource, or a group to utilize, group of users to utilize a specific group of users to utilize the resource or designated resource, or in public, everybody without restriction. So we classify the subjects or the subject to be one of those 3. Cannot be both. Cannot actually, mainly cannot both. The word can be actually here, but even though this is a public use, this is specific use, this is just the owner. The second element constructing the access control, let's say, picture or scenario or graph, is the object itself, the object in question to be secured. Yeah, the resource. What is the resource? A file, a database, a page, maybe. Yes. What is the thing in question? Asked to be displayed or is reached. What is the object? All of them, they are examples. Yeah. Yeah. Then the third element forming the graph of access control is the access right. When we say we're going to utilize, for example, the discretionary access control, or the mandatory access control, or the role-based access control, there is a policy to apply. There is a policy to assign a right at the end of the day, to assign a right. Yes, to give you a chance to access or not. The right, what are the rights you have? So to say that you are awarded an access, so what is the right you have? Mainly we talk about three things, either you read, you write, or you execute. And the context of the execution comes here actually with the addition and the deletion. Execute, you may edit, you may delete, you may add, you may search even here, because to read here. Those are examples only. We see three, as we saw, three subject groups. We see three examples of rights. Read, write, execute only. They are those three only. Stop here. But here, just to make you understand, right, what can you do? What you can do? This is the right. This is the meaning of what is a right. What you can do. This is the meaning of a right. The first policy we go after is the DAC, discretionary access control. Mainly, actually, discretionary access control, it is a context of assigning a group of rights to a group of users for reaching group of objects. I repeat, we assign rights to users to access resources, to access objects. A right to a subject to access an object. So we use a matrix. Very easy. The matrix actually it is drawn. It is drawn based on a specific graph. The fields. Sorry, not the fields. The fields, they are the objects. The records, they are the subjects. The resources, they are actually the positions. The rights, they are the positions intersecting the rows and the columns. The subjects and the objects. They are the rights or the resources to reach. Such let's say, a matrix or such, let's say, graph, it is often sparse in the sense of we might have no right to access a resource for a specific subject. For an object, we may have actually no right to access this resource by subjects. So it's sparse. It's not mandatory that we have to give a right. No, we may not give any right, and thus it is forbidden. If no right is specified, so forbidden. If no right is specified, so forbidden. Let's have a look. Let's have a look further. Yes, great. Let's have a look here. This is an example of a matrix via which we are drawing the DAC, the discretionary access control. Discretionary access control. Let me. Yes. Great. So we are seeing the subjects as roles. They are the records. User 1 is the subject 1. User B is the subject 2. User C is the subject 3, and so on. We may have more than that. And this graph, they are 3. And objects, they are fields. They are record. Columns. Field 1 or column 1 is the file 1. Field 2 or the column 2 is the file 2. Field 3 or column 3 is the file 3. Field 4 or the column 4 is the file 4. Okay, the rights now. User A is the owner and can read and can write the file 1. He cannot even see. He cannot do anything with file 2. He cannot see it. He is the owner and he can read and he can write the file 3. He cannot do anything. He cannot see even the file 4. He cannot see even. User B, user 2. He can read only he can read the file 1. He is the owner and he can read and he can write the file 2. He can write only on the file 3. And since he can write, means he can read also. Since he can write, he can write, he can display, not he can read. He can read file number 4. And so on, and so on. So actually the context here specifies the right on a subject, on an object given to a subject. The right on an object given to a subject. Here, no right. Here actually, we come back. The sparse, being sparse. Why? Because we can see no rights at all given to a file or to an object assigned to a subject. So these actually, because of those empty places, we may say that the matrix is sparse. The matrix is sparse. Any questions, please? Okay, I'll stop at this level. I believe that it's clear. See you.